Hello everyone, and in this episode of Digital Living Space we'll be covering hosting. And if you missed the previous episodes where we talked about domain names and how to get domain names, you're welcome to check them out here. Now, when it comes to hosting, let's get straight to the obvious question here. What the heck is hosting? Hosting is pretty much just a computer where it hosts, or in other words stores, all the data that you would like to store onto your website. And pretty much it looks just like this, where you have a bunch of computers at different locations around the world that pretty much save and store data, just how you would when you store pictures, videos, content, documents, software on your home computer and access that data later. The same thing applies to a website, except that you're having an actual computer on behalf of you, your brand, or your company that stores all their data onto their computer. And of course, once those computers are connected to the internet, that is how people practically access your website, because your computer that's hosted at whichever company may be, whether it be Namecheap, Bluehost, HostGator, you name it, and people are accessing that computer where all your files are stored. Now, of course, there's different types of hosting. And let's go through those real quickly here. There's shared hosting. So when it comes to shared hosting, pretty much it's just like if you have a computer and you're at home and you're sharing the computer among your friends, siblings, parents, you name it, and everyone's sharing the same computer, and eventually the computer can't hold that much memory because it's practically being divided among you and whoever else that's using the computer. The same applies with websites. You'll be storing your website's data on a computer, but it's also being shared with other people who are using that same computer to host your website. And now, of course, the next one is called VPS hosting. VPS hosting, for the sake of an analogy, if we're going to say you had shared hosting, you practically have an apartment or a loft or something like that. Something very small in terms of real estate. VPS hosting is equivalent to you actually having a condo, where you actually have your own dedicated space that's all yours, and you can do what you want with it, and you're responsible for what you do on that hosting account. Or, sticking with that analogy of condos, you're responsible for what happens in your condo, and that's it. Now, what are some of the downfalls with having a shared hosting account? So, like, real quickly, if you're going to talk about you want to stream videos on your website, you cannot do that on most cases when it comes to shared hosting account, because why? Streaming videos takes up a lot of space, especially if it's in HD, especially if it's long in length in terms of time. Like, if it's like a 30-minute HD 1080p video, that could take up a lot of bandwidth and memory, and that may sabotage the performance on other people's websites that share, that same computer with you. That's why shared hosting, most companies won't let you do video streaming on that type of hosting plan. So that's why you may want to look into other hosting plans like VPS hosting, or the next one, dedicated hosting. Now, dedicated hosting, that's pretty much where, in terms of going back to the real estate analogy, it's relating to like a house or a mansion. Now, of course, there could be even other bigger hosting sizes, because, of course, there's, if you yourself have, or a company who needs a lot of space because your website's being accessed from lots of people, and you have lots of data, you have lots of videos, and people are going in and out of your website left and right, then yeah, of course, dedicated hosting would be more suited to host a bigger party, I should say, to use that analogy. Whereas in shared hosting, VPS hosting, the space is only so much to host and invite people to your website or come to the party. But in dedicated hosting, of course, you have a house, and you can have many more people, and you can do much more with the space that you have available. And that pretty much sums up hosting in a very, very big nutshell, because there's many more specific vocabulary words, but I didn't want to go into it for the sake of, I'm not trying to get you all lost in translation. But in essence, this is what hosting is. But most people, if you are a small business and you're just trying to get your website up and going, and you're not sure what hosting you should be looking into, shared hosting would pretty much be the best route to go for what you're trying to do. Especially if you're setting up a simple WordPress site, shared hosting should be more than enough for what you may be trying to do. But again, you're welcome to talk with your own company to see which is best for you with what you're trying to accomplish. Alright, well, that's hosting in roughly less than 5 minutes. So I hope that if you found it very informative here, and stay tuned for the next video, because we'll be covering social media marketing, so stay tuned.